Kazakowski, owner of TFW, found on traditionalfilipinoweapons.com. Today we're going to do another video on the Ginunting. We had already done a demo at one time. If you saw the video, if you haven't, look it up. Just look up TFW Ginunting on YouTube. We caught a lamb thigh that had a bone in it the size of my forearm. We went right through that bone like nothing. The meat, the bone, the whole bit, like it was butter. It actually took me by surprise on how easily it went through. I can only imagine ancient battles, how it just removed heads and limbs and parts of bodies like probably like butter, like nothing, and they continued to one after another. Must have been a bloody mess, I'll bet. This is one good weapon. You can see the sheath that we have here. It's got bamboo holding. In ancient times, that when the bamboo held it together like that, it wasn't glued, but we glue them because we don't have time to continually make sheaths every time we go into battle. It's got the clip so it doesn't fall out, and actually I'd like to show you something on this clip here. You can see how it stays in there nicely. Okay, a short blade should stay in there nicely. You can see how beautifully handcrafted this blade is. A nice kamagong handle, got a skull crusher for infighting. So when you come in, you could actually cut. It's got the back edge where there's like a good 3-4 inches of sharpened edge. So say you do it with the flexion, you could cut back. You can cut like this when you have to on your floretes or whatever move you want to return. So this is a real good combat sword. It's even engineered forward, as you could see, which is hard to get on a curved blade. It's hard to get that forward pressure where it's perfect, where it doesn't feel too heavy or it's going to strain the wrist or anything like that. This thing is engineered to perfection. So what I'm going to do today, because we cut a thigh already, I'm going to cut a small tree, nothing big, but it's not made for that. It might be made for cutting trees like this down with no problem. But this type of thing, it's really not made for that. So I'm just going to give it a try to see how it works and cut this down. Don't worry, for all you tree huggers out there, I am going to use it for firewood. It's not much firewood. It might be a couple hours of burning, but it's firewood nevertheless. So what I'm going to do is just cut this. You have to be accurate, otherwise if you hit it sideways, which I've seen people do, you have to be accurate where the edge goes in, as you can see. This might take a while. I'm not going to hit it hard. This is a maple tree, not the hardest wood in New England, but it's a hard wood. We make furniture out of it and a lot of other things that are supposed to hold up well. Again, even the backhand has to be nice and accurate where you don't hit the side. That's what could potentially bend a blade. These blades are made where the edge much harder than the spine is for pliability, so it doesn't crack during battles. Definitely a hard wood and fresh. Okay, and that's it. I mean, you can see the size of the log. It did take a long time, of course it did. Like I said, this is a smaller blade. Usually, cutting like this is done with like the Sanduko, in the Philippines I'm talking about. Sanduko, the Golak, the War Golak, Panute, blades with the big fat belly. Usually these long, thinner blades are strictly for battle and maybe small brush, small things to do with using it as a tool. So, as you can see, this is it. We cut this. Now I got to cut the rest of it up and use it for firewood. And this is the TFW Ginunting. One thing I would like to stress before we do anything, if you could zoom in on this, there's not a bend to this thing at all. And I just cut maple wood. See what's going on here? Could you see it? This is working very well. I'll show the other side. This is the edge. Perfectly straight. It didn't bend. This is very durable, made of steel blends of 5160 and D2 steel put together. It's our own formula right now. We're the only company that's using that blend of steel that I know of anyway. And it works perfectly. It holds an edge for a long time. As a matter of fact, this is a smaller tree. Look how well it's still cutting. And it still cuts very well. So this thing, look how I hacked that right off. So perfectly, if you zoom in on that cut, you can see how nice and straight that is. This is a real heavy duty blade. You're not going to beat the TFW Ginunting anywhere. Found on traditionalfilipinoweapons.com. Okay, here's what we did. We did a cut video with the Ginunting, and I've cut a lot of trees over the years. You know, I used the kukri, I used the Celtic sword, I used the panute to cut a log in half, and we've got those all on YouTube. I guess that proves durability of the sword. The idea is, I wanted to show, if you notice, the Ginunting is a lot smaller. So I cut a smaller tree, yes. I did start to cut down a bigger tree, and after I got like an inch into that tree, I said, you know what, I'm going to be here all damn day cutting this tree down with something that's not as heavy as like the kukri or the panute, which is not much heavier, but the fatness of the belly of the sword helps it so it acts more like an axe, as opposed to where this kind of blade is definitely like the Zanzibars, and a lot of blades that are long and thin like this are made for basically combat use. All blades were used a little bit for tools, doubled as tools also, especially in the Philippines. And if it's wartime, of course they didn't use it as tools. They would keep them nice and sharp and ready for battle. I had learned the Ginunting from the Grandmaster of the Pakiti Tertia system, Leo Gahe, and he taught me a lot about this Ginunting, and I couldn't even believe how beautiful the sword works in battle. I could only imagine battles of the ancient past with this thing, or any sword of course, but this is very tricky. What makes this unique, if you notice the back edge of this is about maybe 3 inches, sometimes 4 inches of razor sharpness. So the idea of that is when we do like floretes, say for example, and I come in and maybe even come in here, or if I do a backslash and I come in and I go for the throat off of an inside deflection and I come back like this, say for example, that would be used. And I mean, if I do an inside deflection, I come in like that, of course I'm going to follow up with a good thrust, slash, and the typical stuff that you would use for strategy of Filipino martial arts. So this is a very strategically made blade. That's why I like it, especially for that backslash. I mean, if I were to cut an arm and come in and cut the throat again, you can see how that works there. So this is, I really enjoy this. This type of blade, because of the curve that goes downward, a lot of people say, isn't it backwards? Yeah, it kind of looks that way because that looks like a katana or the wakizashi or something like that. But this way, it causes the blade to actually go, the force of it makes it go downward, so it actually wants to do the job for you. And you can see, and the thrust is right there because it's still in line. The thrust is in line with the hand, so it's going to go in and it's going to enter. This is a nice cutting blade. For safety purposes, we're not going to use this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the training blades that we have over here. As you can see right here, we've got various different training blades, and I'm going to use the training Ginuntings. We sell these also on the traditionalfilipinoweapons.com website also, so if you want to train safety, I mean, it's nice to train with the live blade. Solo training is perfect, or long distance training. We have a blade where we do, a video where we do long distance blade training also, but we don't come too close to each other for obvious reasons. These are made of high density polymer. We use these a lot at the school, and you can see these will not break. You could go as hard as you want and they won't break. I mean, I don't recommend hitting each other very hard with these. I mean, just enough so you respect the blade. That's up to the individual, but a lot of people don't go for that because they might, you might lose students that way, so that might not be a good thing. But these are also found on the TFW website, which is traditionalfilipinoweapons.com. Okay, so what we'll do is I was talking about how the back edge, we use the back edge a lot. One of the methods that we use the back edge, say he gives me a backhand, say for example, you can see how I got out of the way and I'm able to use the back edge just to slice the arm. He gives me a forehand angle. You could see how I could still do that type of thing. I can come back and thrust if I want to. Okay, so kind of a fast action motion backhand. So if I come in here, you can see how I could take this out, and you can see how you could pass and get to his outside in case he has a dagger or tries to punch you in the face, which does happen in sword fighting. He gives me the backhand angle. You could see how I come in just like this, and you could see the various different tripping methods you could use to make it even easier off balancing him. Okay. Now he comes in a forehand angle. Okay, so I take it again and I could thrust, and I'm to his outside, so I don't have to worry so much about the other hand. Usually you're gonna push, make sure he's off balance before you do anything. Okay, so that's one of the ways we use that backhand motion. Another method is the florete, as I was describing before. How to use the florete is very, very tricky, okay? It's a little bit different. When we do the florete, you can see how I come up this way. Notice I'm aiming with the backhand, the back edge of the blade, I should say. You can see how I come up. You can see how I come down just like this. Even if I thrust, I can still use, say for example, I'll just give you a backhand angle. I come up here, you can see how I could still use it to cut the throat, go across the eyes, things like that, and I could still come down and take care of the arm. Okay, so this is, I like how this is used. This is very tricky. It gives me number one angle. You could see, one more time please. Okay, you can see how I could come in and take care of it. See how I use the florete to defend. Okay, it gives me a backhand angle. You can see how, you can see how that works. Look at this, see, I can sweep, cut the leg. See, I'm in a good position here all the time when I use the florete. So in slow motion, just so you can see, what I'm doing is, you can see, maybe that's not the exact move I just did, but you can see how it can work. He comes in with the backhand motion, and now notice when I come in, that could be across the face, the eyes, the throat, okay? He comes in again. You can see how I use it, see how that comes in. And I want to constantly get out of the way, obviously. See how that's used. That's a pretty good movement. You can see how the back edge going in first could cut before the front edge even cuts. It's quite unique. The forward edge allows for, if I were to hit a limb, you could see how that would chop the limb right off. I did a cut video, it's on YouTube, where I cut a piece of meat with a big thick bone that was the size of my forearm, and it went through like butter. So you could just imagine, cutting off a head or a limb, embedding into the body would be very easy because of that forward pressure also here. If he were to come in with a thrust, you could see how I could still come in and I get out of the way here. See what's happening? So I use them in slow motion. I actually use this. If we face this way, maybe you could get an idea. This is just a florete. See how I'm doing this? Watch again. See how I continually follow up off the thrust. It's hard for him to recover when I attack right off of his offensive movement here. So when I come in here, right away, the attack is going on. See what's going on? So I come in. See how that works. Okay, so I'm in a good position every time. One of the other methods that we use, say for example, we use a star pattern. Okay, so on this star pattern, the way I teach it in my class is we take a 45-degree angle step in this way, a 45-degree angle step in this way, a 90-degree angle stepping, both sides left and right, 45-degree angle backwards, and 45-degree angle backwards to the right. Okay, so we do this. If you notice, I put myself in a good position here. Okay, this is from the Pakiti Terja system by the Grand Master of the system, Leo Gahe. So this is, I think, a very good method. He calls it the Tri-V formula. A lot of times, I mean, you can see I'm stepping 45, my body's in a 45, and when I strike back, I'm striking back at potentially a 45-degree angle. Not that I have to, I could always go horizontal if it's open for me. So the pattern that I start off with looks just like this. This is how I start people with it, and then we go back to the whole pattern all over again. So you can see that alone will develop muscle memory, develop your leg muscles. So you know, you do this for like 5 minutes straight. It's pretty good. You know, it gets the heart rate going, gets people warmed up. And then a lot of times what we do is after I get people's positions, I teach how to strike off of it. And you can see how I can strike, and I go back into my pattern here, and I strike. See what's happening here. Okay, now, what I'll do is I'll show you how to use this in a drill format. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how we use this star pattern in a drill format. I'll take the first step of the drill on how we do it so you get the idea. What we do is we first do a pattern. Of course, nobody's going to attack you in a pattern. However, you have to go off of something to have some sort of foundation. All right, so if I have the foundation of movement off the pattern, then what I do is I take the next step, and I go into more random play. And in other words, he's still in a pattern, a semi-pattern format, but it's more alive because now you've got to pick up on it, whether he's coming, attacking you this way, thrusting, or slashing and then thrusting, whatever. And then, of course, the next step would be live play, just actually sparring. And it's up to you on how hard you want to go with something like this. These could break bones, but if you wear safety gear, it's a little better. Elbow pads, knee pads, helmet, a fencing helmet, something like that, and you can practice a little bit harder and go a little bit harder with each other. I'll show you how we do the first pattern so you get a good idea. So what happens here is he comes in, notice I trap the arm. Okay, that's going to allow me to intercept any kind of motion, which I would come in here and you can see how everything's forming here. I can cut the leg. Okay, so I'm in a good position. Okay, so this is again that same angle. I trap the arm. The next one, I trap the arm. Now I'm in mid-range, so I'm not going to trap the arm. Now, obviously, that would be kind of crazy for me to come in and get cut, right? He comes at me again. He comes in, goes like this, and then we just do the same thing again. See how we look for him? Comes in again. See? And see how I get right out of the way. Notice my body is in a 45-degree angle. When I get out of the way, he touches my face with the sword. You can see that's not a good thing. By stepping out of the way this way or this way, I'm out of the way. See, my body is no longer there. Makes sense? Okay, so remember I said you don't want to go linear because if he keeps attacking and comes in and I have to continually defend, I want to make him have to adjust to me if I angle out. that gives me enough time to intercept the next movement, which I'm going to get into right now. Now, say for the same thing, I come in here and I slash and I thrust. The typical strategy of Filipino martial arts. See how I'm doing it now. Watch again, I'll show you. I slash and I thrust. Okay? I slash and I thrust. I step this way. I slash and I thrust. I slash this way and I thrust. I thrust this way. See? Now I thrust off this angle. Now the same thing for this type of thing. If you were to come in, I slashed and I thrust. So if he came in with a thrust, I do basically the same thing. What one I want to do is up to the individual. Now sometimes you don't want to slash and thrust. Say he gives me a forehand, backhand. So I come in here and I stop it here. Now I might want to thrust. This is where I can get a good sweep, off balance him a little bit and then hit him. It's going to be hard for him to hit me if he's off balance, whether he got swept this way or he just got tripped. Okay, so it's I'm putting myself in a very good position here. Okay, now that's not the only method that can be used. There's a couple of different methods that I like to do. I call it the quick switch. I just say it in English because it's easier that way. Say, it gives me number one angle. I come in just like this. You can see how I place on here and continue. Okay, so what happens is in slow motion, notice I don't hit with the edge of the blade. In battle, it is possible you could hit with the edge. It's not good, but it can happen. Anything could happen during a battle, and any swordsman knows you don't want to ruin your edge. Okay, but you know, say for example, I want to use it to defend. You can see how this works. See what I'm doing again, so you can see how I pull this out. Okay, see, I go against the blade here. Sometimes you could eject it this way, okay, and then continue your thrust. Okay, again, I gotta stress. Notice I use the flat end of the blade. Okay, that's a cut right there. This is a cut across the stomach. That's when I'm able to use the disarm. Now, another one that almost looks like the same thing, looks like the another quick switch cambiata looking movement. So it comes in number one. I come here and I hit. So in slow motion, we'll take this angle so everybody can see. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I stop it and I come down. So quickly I hit, and you can see what happens right there. See, I come in with the quick switch and I thrust right off the slash, which, like I said, is a quick strategy. That's, you know, makes sense because it's hard to defend all that. That's a lot of shots coming in all at once here. Another one I happen to like is, say for example, he comes in to hit me number one angle. You can see how I got and I intercepted his motion as opposed to doing anything else. No kind of deflection, definitely no blocking. And you can see how I went and I came in right here. Okay, then I followed up with whatever I could follow up with there. I might have to redefend, maybe I missed. You know, you have to respond accordingly. That's why live play is very important. So he gives me backhand. You can see I can do the same thing right here. Okay, I can intercept. Sometimes what happens is he comes over to hit me over here. I could parry and come in. Okay, that right there, obviously the blade's gonna go right through his gut. All right, so that's a definite finish. Do I even have to follow up? You never know. People have gotten stabbed before and don't even know it, so you do have to follow up. Okay. So, I mean, even off of a thrust, he comes in here. I could thrust and counter his counter. Okay, counter his incoming shot, I should say, and make it counter-offensive. See what's going on? Can I go the other way too? Yes. I could potentially go this way and then follow up. Yes, it could happen. Okay, so either way. And whenever you get to the inside, you're here, you want to get to the outside. Okay, so you don't want to deal with this hand. Incidentally, if I stood here and I just went like this, he could punch me right in my face or do that. See what's going on? So you don't want to stay there. This is a mid-range block. Now, if I come in here, notice I came right in. I used the sword to parry the arm or cut off the arm, whatever happens. Even if the arm is cut off, I'm still going to go and trap and go to the outside. I like staying on the outside. I don't want to be in the inside where there's potentially another weapon. You know, they could kick, they could punch, they could stab you, even body shoot. So you want to prevent all that, you have to have all these angles. Okay, in this area, what we're going to do is we're going to work on mid-range. I want to show you what we do in that particular range. The swords and impact weapons or knives come in very fast at that range, so you don't want to screw around in that range. You have to have good deflections that coincide with your body positioning, your angling, see my body positioning. So say if I do a deflection like this, say for example, okay, I have to get out of the way. I don't want to go like this. If I just go like this, and he goes fluid, and you could see, go right through, and you can see I get cut here, okay? So you don't want to stand there. You have to have proper body mechanics. Now what I want you to notice is on my deflection, I do kind of a 45-degree angle with my sword. So when I come in, I go like this. Okay, I don't come in and go like this. Some styles teach it that way. I don't. For proof of that, say for example, he pushes against, just push against my sword. If I have it like that, I have no leverage. If he pushes against it here, you can see what happens. The guard will save me, even if it's on the side, which you should be able to use either side. Okay, so if he pushes here, he can't. I have leverage advantage at that. It doesn't have to be an exact 45 as long as it's an angle. Okay, so that's called inside deflection for obvious purposes. Okay, I'm going inside my body. So he comes in to hit me. You can see I could come in here and follow up. Yes, he could defend, but this is done very fast. Okay, the outside deflection, what I'm doing is I come in here. Now I could step, as we did the SAR pattern, I could step this way, I could step this way, or I could step this way. It depends on the position I'm in at the time. Okay, so if he gives me a backhand, I come in here, and you could see how I can now re-enter. Another one we have, some people call it roof block. My teacher, Leo Gahe, calls it umbrella. Okay, so what you're doing is you're coming in like this. Now, if you notice, what I'm doing here is I'm coming up and I'm drawing it. I'm like almost like I'm cutting my hair. Excuse me, not cutting my hair, combing my hair almost like, and I draw it at the same time. So what I'm doing is I'm going like this. See? So when he comes in, and you can see I can re-attack right there. I can also, if he comes in like that, I can thrust and take everything out and cut the arm. Okay, see what's going on. So I'm in a good position when I do that. Notice again the 45-degree angle. So when I come up, notice I'm at a 45 with the sword. Okay, so when I come in like this, I'm in a good position to re-attack in whatever way I want to do. Okay, the thrust. When he thrusts, I also do it in a 45-degree angle. I set and I get out of the way. Sometimes when he thrusts, you can see I can go like this. We'll change sides. Okay. What I do is I could also go like this. See how I step. So what I'm doing is I could even do this again. Cut the arm. See how I do that? Cut the arm. Okay. So that's one method. It depends on where your hand is at the time. All these deflections. It depends on where your hand is at the given time. That's why you have multiple options here. So sometimes what happens, he comes in and I come in this way. See what I'm doing here? You can see how I can cut and come right back into for the kill if necessary. Back in those days, that's what they did. There were no laws. Okay, so that's some of the deflections. You get an idea what's going on. The florette that we use. Okay, see how I see? Notice it's in a 45-degree angle also. So no matter how I do this, you can see the sword is always in a 45-degree angle. Okay, he gives me this angle here, and I cut and I can come in. See what's going on there. Okay, now in slow motion, I just got to show you how that works. Here, cut the arm. I can come in and follow up. See how that works. Notice I still have to get out of the way. I'm not going to stand there and get cut. Okay, anybody who stands in front, I don't agree with that. It's not a good thing to do because people don't go like this. Just a bend. They don't go like this. People go all the way through and they're fluid with it. So you have to get out of the way when you're working with, especially a sword. Okay, so he gives me a backhand angle here. You can see, do it again here. Okay, you can see how I go. And again, maybe we'll use this angle so you can see better. I come in and I can follow up, obviously, and take him out that way. So that's how, just another way to deflect. Again, it depends on where your hand is. Say he goes a 5 to a 1, okay? So if he comes in here, you can see how I have to get out of the way. I need the hook. If I go for a roof, it might be too late. He's going fluid. He's coming in to take my body and cut it in half. So what happens here is if I come in here, that's where I continue my striking. And then you thrust, get behind him, and finish him off. So these are the various different ways you're going to see us use some of these deflections. And what we'll do now. In summary, I just want to describe how we use the Ginunting. Can you use any sword like that? Obviously you can, pretty much. But each sword that is made, a lot of times that shape of the sword is the reason why that particular style works. That goes for every sword that you see on the TFW website and elsewhere. Pretty much the masters of that style adapted to that blade and adapted their style to that blade. So that's why there's some subtle differences, even though they all look the same, but different. That's what I like to say. Use the training Ginunting. You could do long distance sparring. We do have a long distance sparring video online where we come very close. If you kind of look at it, you'll see the subtleties there where I'm, my student and I are cutting each other's arms from a long distance. I mean, it's a dangerous way to play, and I only do that with advanced students. Okay, so we have the training Ginunting and we have the real Ginunting, and they're all found on traditionalfilipinoweapons.com.